Welcome Wargamers, Doug here from 2 Plus Tough, and today we are cracking into the Maggotkin of Nurgle Battle Tome, specifically with the Path to Glory rule. I'll be honest, this is sort of a cursed episode. I have tried to record this like 4 times, and every single time my recording software just kind of gums up and I have to delete the entire thing and start over. But fortune favors the persistent, and here we go. So in this video, we're going to be talking all about the Path to Glory rules, which if you're new to Age of Sigmar, is sort of the narrative play where you build your army over time, and there's all kinds of unique rules and abilities, and they're really meant to flesh out what this faction looks like in the lore on the tabletop. So it's got unique missions and hero upgrades and veteran abilities and locations, and Nurgle brings that to the front when it comes to how they claim territory. We'll talk all about that in a bit. So if you have any interest whatsoever in the Maggotkin of Nurgle Path to Glory missions, please stay tuned. We're going to be diving into that. Right after a quick word from today's sponsor, and that is Not Just Gaming. Not Just Gaming is an awesome store over on the East Coast with discounts on all kinds of Games Workshop as well as hobby supplies. If there is any project that you are coming up on and your local store does not have it, please consider using my link down below, because big or small, every time you do, it goes directly to supporting me, my wife, our cats, the whole channel, and I could not be more grateful. I do want to throw out here, if you're new to the faction in general and you have no idea who these guys are, I will have a link down to my lore playlist for the Maggotkin of Nurgle. I assume that you've at least listened or read something of Nurgle, because we're going to dive into how those lore concepts are being brought to the table. So let's go into the downward cam and check it out. I do want to say very quickly, if you're new to Age of Sigmar as a game system, you get all of the allegiance abilities for your army. These are always in effect, and there's tons of podcasts and shows that walk you through these in excruciating detail and give you synergies and stuff, but we're going to focus on Path to Glory. But the reason I point this out is because there's some confusion. All of your army rules work in Path to Glory. This is in addition to rather than instead of. So let's jump into this. Path to Glory, discovering the hidden patches of the garden. This is their overarching rule. When you make an exploration roll, post-game, trying to see what territory you claim, on a 61 through 66, you can pick a territory from the Maggotkin of Nurgle faction territories table on page 75. These territories represent hidden or isolated places into which the foul flora of Nurgle's garden has already encroached, and so they work differently to other territories in a Path to Glory campaign. Firstly, you do not have to spend any glory points to control them. You can do so automatically. Second, these territories cannot be upgraded. Now, we have a lot to say about the territories, but this is trying to introduce you to Nurgle's concepts in the lore coming to the table. He's not necessarily about military conquest, it's about twisting the realms to look like Nurgle's garden. So these little awesome tidbits of information, I think they're kind of like designer's notes, trying to kind of point you in a direction, like this is what we're going for. And here's a great one. Your aim as a champion of the Plague God in a Path to Glory campaign is to expand the borders of the Garden of Nurgle into the mortal realm. Nice and simple. Next rule here is seeding the Garden of Nurgle. In addition to discovering hidden patches, meaning you roll a 61 through 66 on the terrain thing, instead of that, you can seed a territory you control and convert it into a new patch. In order to seed a territory, you must complete either the Gardener of Nurgle quest or the Spread of Corruption quest. We'll get to the quest in a second. In addition, if you fight a Path to Glory battle using the Encroaching Corruption battle plan, the results may allow you to cede a territory or allow your opponent. In addition, if you fight a Path to Glory battle using the Encroaching Corruption battle plan on page 78, the result may allow you to cede a territory or allow your opponent to revert one of your territories to its original form. And then they give us some good gamey definitions of seed and revert. So essentially, I'm going to oversimplify this just a bit and leave the minutia for you to read. But as you're playing the campaign game, you're going to be accruing territories. That is a base thing that every single army does. You, however, as a Nurgle player, it's not about claiming the territory necessarily and the benefits it gives you militarily, it's about corrupting. So, when you look at your roster of territories, you can twist them into being dark, I guess, reflections of what they are supposed to be. The way that this works, and I'll show you here, and we're going on here. So looking at the territories, the way that this works is if you have one of the base ones, meaning these are all from the core book, Wildlands, Arcane Waypoints, Small Settlements, Realmstone Reserve, Wellspring, and, Borderland. Essentially, if you have any of those on your roster, you can take one and quote-unquote corrupt it or seed it, and it takes on this new name. name. So like if you corrupt wildlands, it becomes the crawling swamp. We'll cover the territories here in a second, but that's the basic idea. You're trying to get territories and you want to corrupt them because your corrupted ones, the same list that you would roll on a 61 through 66, are what gives you access rather to some really important and cool campaign rules. Now there's some stuff about demon units. I'm going to pause there because I want to finish up our discussion about the direction that Nurgle is going when it comes to their terrain and claiming land and all that kind of stuff. We're going to skip over here to the Blighted Landscape. If you're fighting a battle using one of the Path to Glory battle plans from the core book and you are the defender, you must use the following Blighted Landscape rules. You are considered to be the defender if you are one of the following. And then it gives you all the alternate names for defender, so ambusher, custodian, guardian, ritualist. Now there is a designer's note here that if you and your opponent are both playing Path to Glory, you can use this in whatever battle you want, but they're just saying the core missions have to. So there's some special rules that go with hidden corruption. In your hero phase, you can pick up to D3 different units that are within 3 inches of a terrain feature and roll a dice for each of those units. On a 4-up, the unit being rolled for is given 1 disease point if it's an enemy unit, or you receive 1 contagion point if it's a friendly. Next one is Aid Me Grandfather. Once during the battle, when a friendly Nurgle hero is slain, before their model is removed from play, you can say that he will beseech Nurgle for help. If you do so, roll a dice. On a 6, the hero is not slain, all wounds allocated to it are healed, and any wounds that are currently remaining to be allocated are negated. On a 3 through 5, the hero is slain. On a 1 or 2, you can add 1 Beast of Nurgle unit that has 1 model to your army and set it up within 1 inch of the hero of Nurgle, or the hero, and then the hero is slain. And the next one is Tearing Down the Garden. If your opponent wins the battle, they must roll a die. Add 2 to the roll if they won a major victory. And on a 6-up, your opponent can revert 1 of your territories. So with the exception of the demon units, let's put this all together. You're out trying to gain as many territories as you can, corrupting them into your Nurgle versions to be able to gain special rules. Anytime that you are the defender, meaning the opponent has come quote unquote into your Garden of Nurgle, you get these awesome abilities. So these are anytime you are on the defense, because it's dangerous to enter the Garden of Nurgle. The hidden corruption means that your forces are going to have a chance to receive contagion points that can be used for summoning, and your opponent, if they're near territory, it's dangerous to them, so they're going to be hit with disease points. That's what it is. Yeah, the Nurgle mechanic for basically trying to do mortal wounds and stuff. When you're fighting defensively, the grandfather himself looks down and tries to defend his garden. And so what's cool about this Nurgle hero Aid Me Grandfather thing, the rules for Gave Spawn in Beasts of Chaos allow you to put up a chaos spawn unit whenever a hero is killed. Now, that's an incredibly good power. I loved having it in that army. This is definitely a diet version of that, if you will, but getting a free Beast of Nurgle is awesome. And keep in mind, this doesn't change a whole lot, except this little note here is awesome. If a hero is slain and replaced with a Beast of Nurgle in a Maggotkin Path to Glory army, then that hero is removed from the order of battle in step 2 and replaced with a Beast of Nurgle. So this is a permadeath you can offer for your heroes. And I like all of that together. It's all about terrain in a way that is very different from other factions who also like to focus on terrain. So let's go back here to the demon units. Nurgle demon units that do not have the hero keyword are not recorded on your order of battle. Instead, when you pick your army for a battle, you can include 3 Nurgle demon units that do not have the hero keyword for each Great Unclean One, or Glotkin you include in your army. And you can include 1 Nurgle demon unit that does not have the hero keyword for each other Nurgle demon hero or Nurgle mortal hero included in your army. Also, Legion of Chaos, you can add any number of coalition units to your order of battle. However, when you pick an army for battle from that roster, you still have the limits of how many you can take in a given force. So let's talk about this now, because this has nothing to do with terrain, right? We can move away from that discussion. The ability to have units in your army that you still pay points for the demon, and to take them into battle, you just have restrictions on how many units you can take depending on your heroes, but you're always going to be able to take 2 or 3, right? If you get 1 unit per Nurgle hero, whether they're demon or mortal, you don't need to focus on the big guys like the Great Unclean One or the Glotkin, rather, you just get a couple demons for showing up with a bit of heroes. The fact that they are not on your actual roster is important for 2 very big reasons. The first one is that they can never take a casualty score. In Path to Glory, as your troops die in any given unit, at the end of the game, if they are still lost, you have to roll to see if they are dead. or if the unit gets replenished. Basically, you roll a die for every guy in the unit. Any one increases the casualty score, and so the next game you are the unit size minus the casualty score. Demons are not affected. Meaning, so no matter what happens, if you have a devastatingly bad game, you will always start with a full unit of, let's say, Plague Bearers, for example. Although you could go any of the demons that are accessible to you in this book. What this tells me is if you are playing Path to Glory, these guys are your meat shields. Do not throw away Blight Kings carelessly, because when you start accruing casualty scores on such an elite unit, it really starts to hurt. Throw your Plague Bearers into the meat grinder because you don't care. Now, the second really important thing that this brings up about not having them on your roster is you can never give them a veteran ability. They don't gain experience, they don't become warriors of renown, they are stagnant. The first time you put a unit of Plague Bearers on the table is going to be the same as the last, but again, that's what they're there for. All of your accolades can go to your Blight Kings and your Puscoil Blight Lords and your heroes and wizards and all that kind of stuff. So there's a plus and a minus to it, but I personally love it. And so let's move on from these pages since we've kind of exhausted it. I would like to move over, we're going to skip ahead to the territories. And the reason I do that is because I want to stay in the main theme of what Maggotkin of Nurgle is about. Okay, so we're going to read through these here pretty simply. Maggotkin of Nurgle faction territories. Remember, you can roll for these if you roll a 61 through 66, or if you have the core, the original version, so in this case Wildlands, Borderlands, Arcane Waypoints, whatever, you can corrupt these with certain missions and abilities into these Nurgle versions. And then if your opponent beats you in a defensive match, as I said before, they can choose one of these and revert it back to normal. To put it really simply, these are all the core game territories, but when they're corrupted, they add something special just for Nurgle. So it's the same territory plus something extra, which honestly I like, because there's nothing outlandish here, but it's stuff that would be vaguely familiar to your opponent. So we'll start with the Crawling Swamps. This is the evolved version of Wildlands. Increase your monster limit by 2, what Wildlands does. In addition, in step 7 of the Aftermath sequence, roll a dice. On a 6, you can add 1 Beast of Nurgle to your order of battle without having to spend any glory points, or you can reinforce 1 eligible Beast of Nurgle unit on your order of battle without having to spend any glory. Now that might seem strange, saying that you get a free demon unit when the previous rule said demon units don't show up on your War Scroll entry, but this is a specific exception. It has it right down here as a designer's note, and this gives you the ability to add a unit that could suffer damage. It just gives you more things in play, or if you had a hero, we'll go back to our Aid Me Grandfather, if your hero does this and gets turned into a Beast of Chaos, it also gets added to your roster. And then over here on the top right, it says this is an exception to the rule that demons don't get added. But it means that you can reinforce your hero unit. The hero that got turned into a Beast of Nurgle, you can reinforce him. I like that a lot. Of course, this means now that they're on the roster, they can take casualty scores as well as gain veteran ability. The next one here is Meadows of Arcane Corruption. This is the Nurgle version of Arcane Waypoints. Increase your wizard limit by 2. Pretty common. In addition, step 7 of the Aftermath sequence, roll a dice. On a 6, you can add 1 Nurgle Mortal Wizard unit to your order of battle without spending any glory points. You get a free wizard. I like it. Next is Befouled City. This is the small settlement. Increase your reinforced unit by a limit by 2. In addition, in step 7 to the Aftermath sequence, roll a dice. On a 6, you can reinforce 1 eligible Nurgle unit on your order of battle without spending glory points. You guys are getting the theme here. Free stuff all day. Now keep in mind, as these things are added to your order of battle, you're still paying points for them in your list when you go to play, but this is a glory points efficiency model where some of the best rewards can be added for free, so you can spend glory points on things like reducing casualty score or getting your new base of operations all set up, all the various things that glory points can be used for. Next up top is Fortress of Corroded Iron and Blubber, which is the Nurgle version of Borderlands. In step 3 of the Aftermath sequence, roll 3 dice. For each 5-up, you can either give 1 unit on your order of battle that was not included in your army in that battle, 1 renown point, or you can add 1 quest point to the progress section of a Feculent Devotions quest. Now keep in mind, Feculent Devotions is a very specific quest, so we will get to that in just a moment. So 65 is going to be Feculent Forest. This is the Nurgle version of Wellspring. In each Aftermath sequence, you can pick up the D3 units from to benefit from this territory. When making a recuperating roll for a unit you pick, it is treated as not having taken part in the battle. Instead of picking any units to benefit from this territory, you can add 1 quest point to the progress of the Gardener of Nurgle quest. Again, a very specific one, but the ability to have recuperating rolls as if they weren't in battle is a terrific ability. When you have units that are so low in number, being able to get more and more of them back is quite good. And last at 66 is Filth Pit. This is the corrupted version of Realmstone Reserve. You receive 3 extra glory points in step 1 of the Aftermath sequence. That's always good. And instead of receiving 3 glory points, you can add 1 quest point to the progress section of a Spread Corruption quest. So some really quick and simple thoughts about territories. The first 3 are all about giving you free models while not taking away the benefits of, the base versions of the territories. And the second 3, 64 through 66, are all about either an in-game benefit to make your ongoing campaign easier, whether it's giving out renowned, casualty replenishment, or just straight glory points, or you have the option of foregoing these benefits and putting a quest point into whatever quest you're a part of. They each have an assigned one. I love this as a setup because it's interesting, because I've heard people say online that they were disappointed because it's just corrupted versions of existing things. They wanted something new and original. The effects are original. I do think so. And if you were a Nurgle player before, like you had the previous Battle Tome and then this dropped, you probably have. These are some of your core territories. You're probably going to have at least 1 or 2 of them. And so to corrupt them and then start accruing things for free from them is awesome. Personally, I think it fits the theme of Nurgle just tremendously in terms of you want to get out there, get territories, corrupt them, and then you get special bonuses if you're playing on the defensive, meaning someone's trying to come into your garden. Meanwhile, all these effects feel very thematic, like when there's a big enough node of Nurgle energy, beasts of Nurgles just kind of come randomly. Wizards smell it on the wind. Chaos warbands gather around you. There's no wasted space. I'll go out of my way to criticize Games Workshop. A lot of times the 61 will be like, this has no effect. And you're like, then what's the point? But no, I think they did good here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the territories. I think it's quite nice. Going back to make sure I didn't miss anything, we have a name generator, which is super fun. Rotbringers, Lesser Demons, and malodorous mutations. So you can kind of also come up with what makes them unique and then model it for yourself. Now with that out of the way, let's talk quests. Now we've already been introduced to the names of all 3 of them: Spread Corruption, Gardener of Nurgle, Feculent Devotions, from our territories list. So keep in mind as we're going through these, it is totally possible with your order of battle and the locations you have to probably get a free quest point in one of these. So we'll start with Spread Corruption. As a Maggotkin army fights its way across the realms, the lands themselves sicken and become infected with all manner of repugnant life. At the end of each Path to Glory battle, add 1 quest point to the progress section of your quest log if you won a major victory. Once you've gained 3 quest points, you complete this quest. When you complete this quest, pick 1 territory that you control and can be seeded and follow the instructions for seeding. So if you have any of these OG territories, you can use this quest to seed it. And this is Spread Corruption. So the Filth Pit 66 is what helps you do this. And honestly, I gotta say, this is a good get. If you can get this one, the Filth Pit, you can either at any given point receive 3 extra glory points, which is terrific for use in anything because all of this stuff makes your glory points more efficient, or throw it into here and start knocking away at corrupting another territory to start gaining its benefits. The next one here is Gardener of Nurgle. It is the goal of every Maggotkin warlord in the to expand the borders of Nurgle's garden far into the mortal realm. At the end of each Path to Glory battle, you add 1 quest point if you won a minor victory, and you add 3 if you won a major victory. So this is one you can knock out in 1 round. Once you've gained 3 or more quest points, you can fight the Path to Glory battles using the Seeds of Corruption battle plan. If you win a minor victory or a major victory in that battle plan, you complete this quest and the rewards are listed. So let's check this guy out. I have the picture here on the screen for you so you can take a look at it, but essentially the Nurgle territory is this one little short side of the board, and the defender, who is whoever you're playing against, has the vast majority of it, and there are 3 specific locations that have to be marked out. These 3 locations are known as cess nodes, and the basic plot of the game is Can the Nurgle army, with its limited deployment, come over and sprout a feculent Gnarlmaw on each of these points? There's some details in there, but that's the overall question that's being asked. You change a Cess node to a Rot node, which is a Nurgle winning condition, by planting a feculent Gnarlmaw within 1 inch of a Cess node. If at the end of the battle, all 3 of these have been twisted, the Maggotkin gains a major victory, and if fewer than 2 have been changed to Rot nodes, the defender wins a major victory. If neither player wins a major victory, each player adds up the points value of all enemy units that have been destroyed, and if one is higher than the other, they win a minor. Which is funny, the first time I read this, I honestly thought if you got 2 out of the 3, you would get a minor victory, but that's not true. You have to go for broke on all of these. Barring that, it's about how much can you kill, which ends up being an important question when the Maggotkin player has to extend themselves so far to get to these back two. You don't want to send your army in piecemeal because they'll just take you apart, and then when it's time to score everything, all of a sudden Nurgle's lost a whole bunch of dudes. And then we have our victory conditions here. If the Gardener, meaning Nurgle, wins the battle, they complete the Gardener of Nurgle quest and concede a territory for free. If the Defender wins the battle, the Gardener must reduce the number of quest points on the quest log for the Gardener quest to 2. So you have to back up so that you can hopefully earn it again. There's some bonus renown here. Each of the Gardener's units that's within 3 inches of a Rot node at the end of the battle gains 1 renown point. Each of the Defender's units that's within 3 inches of a Cess node at the end of the battle gain 1 renown point. So at the end of the game, you just want everyone sitting around as many of these little nodes as possible for both sides. Final quest here is Feculent Devotions. At the end of the Path to Glory battle, add 1 quest point to the progress section for each feculent Gnarlmaw you set up during the battle, not before the battle began. So you have to actually grow these during the game. Once you have gained 3 or more quest points, you complete this quest. I'm just going to pause here. I love that as a condition. You have to do the things the mechanics allow you to do. When you complete this quest, the next battle you fight in another Path to Glory army, before deployment, you can give each friendly Plague Bearer host and Plague Drones 1 veteran ability that can only be used in that battle. Now, I like this quite a bit. The ability to give veteran abilities just removes the downside of what we were talking about before when you add demons to your army, so that could be massively important. It really just depends. Like if you're someone who likes to focus on the mortal stuff, maybe you have some Plague Bearers as chaff units, but you like the mortal things. That's kind of where I lean. This is going to have minimal value. Maybe I'll do it once or twice, but if you're a demon player, this is going to be your bread and butter, and that's rad. Now there is one more battle in the back here, but this is a different version of the same thing where you're trying to basically push and pull the extent of Nurgle's Rot. And I will say, while this one seems like a really interesting fight, depending on the forces you take, this one seems like an all-out brawl that favors Nurgle pretty heavily. All of your main characters, Great Unclean One, Horticulus Slimex, the Glotkin, Festus the Leech Lord, and a feculent Gnarlmaw, if all of those things or any of them get into your opponent's territory, you start winning big. So this one's, I'll consider it more of a thematic battle than anything else, but it is cool. And lastly, we have the veteran abilities. I'll go through these pretty quick because some of them are more interesting than others, but we have Driven by Devotion. This unit can use this veteran ability once per battle at the start of the combat phase, and when it does so, you receive 1 contagion point for each enemy model slain by an attack made by this unit in that phase. So if you line up a super killy thing, like an engagement that you are sure to win, Blight Kings versus Clan Rats or something like that, this could be a moneymaker. Remember, contagion points are all about summoning. You want those so bad. But also keep in mind, having enemies run away from battle shock is not the same thing as killing them. So it's literally in the combat phase. Could mean everything, could mean nothing. It's up to what unit you put it on, if they're killy enough, and what you throw them at if they die like the breed. Next one here is Unnatural Regeneration. This unit can use as a veteran ability once per battle at the end of any phase in which any models in this unit were slain. When it does so, roll a dice for each model in this unit that was slain for that phase. On a 4-up, you can return 1 slain model to this unit. That one's pretty straightforward. I mean, you can stack that with, Rally? Something like that, where you get models back. There's no reason not to. And honestly, this is the kind of thing that if you haven't played Path to Glory before, you can do this even when you're not in combat and try to get guys back. So like round 4, do this no matter what, and that way when the game ends, you'll have fewer casualties, therefore a lower casualty score. So you just got to keep that in mind. This is always a good one, any game, any. Next is Boon of Virulence. You can use this veteran ability once per battle at the start of the combat phase. When it does so, until the end of that phase, each attack made by with a melee weapon by this unit inflicts 1 disease point on the target on an unmodified hit roll of a 5 or 6. Their core rules just say 6. This is just increasing an ability they already have, which is great. Next is Revolting Resilience. This unit can use this veteran ability once per battle before you make a Disgusting Resilient ward roll for this unit. When it does so, add 1 Disgustingly Resilient ward rolls. Add 1 to those ward rolls for this unit until the end of that phase. I like this one because it can go one of 2 ways. You can put it on a chaff unit and rush them forward and just hope that they survive, basically using them as a very extravagant tar pit to hold down your opponent's stronger stuff because they're just not killing enough things. Or if you have like your anvil or your big hammer that you're trying to throw at your opponent and you don't want any of those guys to die, it's also a great one there. Next one is Blessed with Fecundity. This unit can use this veteran ability once per battle at the start of any phase, and when it does so, it's treated as a Locus of Fecundity till the end of that phase. Now, Locus of Fecundity, I'm just going to go through this for a quick refresh. The following units are each a Locus of Fecundity. Great Unclean One, Horticulus Slimex, the Glotkin, and Festus the Leech Lord, all your big hitters. The Disgustingly Resilient battle trait heals D3 wounds allocated on a model that is within, a model instead of 1, if that model is within 14 inches of the loci of fecundity. So normally all Maggotkin stuff gets to heal a wound in general, but if you're near one of these guys, you get to heal D3. And for a turn, he lets you be one of those. The impact is going to be minimal. It would really be nice on a hero, to be honest. It just bring the hero up the backfield, has a 14-inch aura around him. Hopefully there's a lot of units that are all engaged in combat because you want to be affecting those disease points on your enemy, and he can come and just heal everybody up a little. And the last one here is Cycles Within Cycle. This unit can use this veteran ability once per battle after the cycle of corruption moves to a new stage. If it does, you can move that cycle of corruption 1 stage forward. So we still have the Wheel of Corruption and all the abilities that throws at us as the wheel goes around. And what this is saying is that, let's say we started our turn at Plague of Misery, our actual round begins, we click over to Noxious Revulsions. I don't like that one. You use this ability, you kick it forward to the next one, Rampant Disease. Now, my thoughts about the veteran abilities. 1, I like them because they either do something the army wants to do, which is stay alive and be tanky, or they make use of the existing mechanics for your army. So if you're learning how to play match play, this is not a crazy alternative where they throw totally new concepts at you. They're just enhancing the things that already exist. Where it gets crazy is when you can start using these things in addition to the artifacts and spells. For example, there's multiple ways to mess with the Wheel of Corruption. There's a lot of ways to kind of mastermind what stage you want it to be at. Throwing out disease points, contagion points based on your hitting. There's a lot of cool things to love about the veteran abilities here. And so what I'm going to do now is go back to the front cam and have a talk about my final thoughts. So I have to say, this is one of my favorite Path to Glory sets in terms of like the actual rules. Every one of them adds something to the army. There's no, this has no effect kind of stuff, which I hate. And not only do they add to the army, but they also make use of existing mechanics that are already super fun and flavorful. It just kind of pushes them up to a level where it's like to give you a sense of how corrupting and evil Nurgle actually is. So I gotta say, this is an awesome win. I'm trying to think if it ranks near the Fire Slayer one, but it certainly is probably the most Nurgle battle tome I have seen in terms of translating lore into rules and then having a Path to Glory thing that allows you to meaningfully reenact what their overall mission is, corrupting the realms, and you're rewarded for that instead of focusing on martial prowess. I really like it. If you are a Maggotkin of Nurgle player, I would love to hear your thoughts on the Path to Glory section, and please tell me which one you would like me to cover next. Try to stick to the 3.0 battle tomes because I have all of those. I'm still tracking down some of the White Dwarfs, but this was an awesome suggestion, and I'm sorry it took so long and so many tries to get this out. They are a fantastic army that can be started very simply and very affordably, actually, because they require so many points per unit. But then when you get into the options of creating, flavorful builds where your Plague Bearers don't go on your roster, but they still show up on the battlefield, that kind of stuff, I love. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below, and I will catch you in my next Age of Sigmar Path to Glory video. Happy wargaming.